Good morning. Thank you for joining. I know this is new technology for a lot of us, so hopefully you're on this live and with us, but if not, don't worry. We're going to record it and post it afterwards, which is why I'm not going to wait for the people who are not getting in. I'm going to jump right in so that we can keep this to a quick, hopefully 30-minute summary with Q&A. So if you have any questions, just type them into the chat below right when you think about it, and I'll try to get to them at the end. And if we don't have any questions, great, go on with your amazing day. And if you think about it later, go ahead and come back to my channel and type it in the chat, and I'll try to get to it. I have been thinking about the immune system for a long time. It's a huge passion of mine. And I was asked to give this presentation because I've listened to over 22 hours just recently of in light of SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19, and listened to the experts, not the media, and then followed the research and tried to compile it into this shorter lecture. Hopefully it doesn't feel like a boring lecture, but just to give you what we do know, the facts of what we do know, because I think if you hear the media and you hear anybody saying that they know for sure, we pretty much know that's a lie. Everything is so fresh and so new with this new virus, and we'll talk about what that means, even to be a new virus, that we have to look back to the research of what we do know. And there's some pretty good information out there that could help you feel more empowered and less afraid. So now that I understand a little bit more, I feel much better. And who am I to share this? I do have expertise in nutrition, and we're going to talk a lot about nutritional therapy and functional medicine with a master's of science in human nutrition and functional medicine. And the great news is that following those practices really helps support your immune system. So I think that you'll be excited with the information, but more than all of that, I'm a mama bear and I have baby cubs. I have kids and I want my family to be healthy, and I think you do too. So I know you don't have a lot of time, and let's get right into the information of what you can do. So this is what we'll cover today. We're going to cover, and before I start, I have to give this disclaimer. Please know that this is not a personal meeting where I'm discussing your health and your specific information. I'm not a doctor and I'm not your practitioner. I might be privately, but right now I'm giving very general information that's for educational purposes. And some of the herbs or foods I'm going to mention can have interactions with medication, and I don't know what medication you are on. So please work with the supervision of your doctor or your physician, your practitioner, and make sure that it's safe for you. And with that said, we're going to talk about what our immune system is doing when it is around these viruses, in particular SARS-CoV-2, but just in viruses in general. We're going to talk about why elders are more at risk than kids. It's not just age. We would be naive to just say, if you're old, you're more at risk, and if you're young, and look for the statistics to find the different ages. There are really good reasons why there's a higher risk when you're older than when you're younger. And everybody's at risk for getting COVID-19. It's a virus, but we'll talk about how to improve your risk so that you're not at such a high risk. We're going to talk about the holistic remedies that support your immune system. At that point, if you feel like, shoot, I didn't have a pen and didn't write them down, don't worry. You can always come back and watch the recording later. And I'm going to give you my 5 tips in functional medicine, how to build a resilient immune system and what that means. So let's start by learning a little bit about the immune system. Our immune system is this innate gift that we have that has this intelligence to fight off viruses and to fight or tolerate everything in your environment. So imagine you're sitting in this pasture, and luckily right now you can imagine, because some of you will be thinking, oh my goodness, the hay fever, I would be going crazy. Because every part of your body is learning about this environment, from your mouth breathing in parts of the pollen, your nose as you inhale. Maybe it's getting down into the lungs, your skin that's touching the environment, the stomach, intestines, tonsils, spleen. The list goes on and on and on. Everything is used as a machine that's getting more intelligent by the moment. It's taking in your environment and then making antibodies to everything that enters. And our antibodies are so specific that we make a different antibody for scrambled eggs than we would for hard-boiled eggs. So you can imagine when our environment gets into our body, like the COVID-19 virus. Coronaviruses have been around forever, but this different change, this new novel change in the genetic material of this virus is new. It's not like the old, it's like scrambling the egg as opposed to the hard-boiled egg. So it's a little bit different for our system. And even though thousands of things are happening in our immune system at the same time to deal with this environment, we only see 3 tools, and those are allergies. Our body will go right away into saying, that is not a friend. Whatever just entered is an invader, and I am allergic to it. We see inflammation, so not a complete allergy, but maybe a scratch, maybe a poison oak, something that got on the body. It starts inflaming right away, sending out white blood cells, trying to block off the area so that it doesn't get more infected or spread. And then we develop immune responses and hopefully immunity or tolerance. So this is our immune system at work. Here we are. We're completely exposed to this new virus. Now remember, this virus is a coronavirus that we've had forever. They cause colds, but it's a mutation, which sounds like a mutant monster, but it's a change. Just like a change in DNA happened when I had a kid, although viruses don't replicate like we do and have kids, they change in DNA. They're constantly changing, and they're adapting to their environment and looking for a weak spot. So this virus tries to get in your nose from maybe somebody was talking and spewing the particles. And what does your body do? It had its attack, it tried to get in. We have our attack. Our immune system sneezes. It starts a runny nose so that your mucus is trying to make a slippery place where the virus can't quite stick and get in, because that virus has to get in and use your body's cells like a copy machine to start making a whole bunch of viruses and overwhelm your system. But our body's like, no way, and it starts making mucus to try to get it out, and maybe watery eyes. But do we let this happen? Typically, no. We take an antihistamine and try to make it stop. So now, maybe you take an antihistamine and the virus is getting in there, and our lungs try to cough, or the throat coughs, but we don't want to cough, so we take a cough suppressant. So now the virus is getting in there, it's starting to multiply, trying to use your cells like a copy machine, and your body starts to have an immune response. It starts to swell up with inflammation, which causes some redness, pain, sometimes that pain in the head like a headache, and a fever. And we think, oh my goodness, this is a really high fever. But what a really smart doctor just shared with us on Dr. Elisa Song, a pediatrician in our area, was the height of your fever is not the worse the infection. So it doesn't matter that your fever got so high. It doesn't mean you have a worse infection. It means that your body decided it needed to raise the fever, the heat, the temperature of your body that high to burn this virus. But do we let that happen? No, we don't want swelling and pain and fever and redness. It's uncomfortable with, so we take a fever reducer, acetaminophen, anti-inflammatory, a steroid, anything to try to stop our immune system from working. So maybe our immune system then tries to vomit out the particle, but no, we don't want to vomit, so we take an antiemetic, or we take a antacid if it feels like it's a reflux. We take a proton pump inhibitor. like Zantac or something to try to stop that from happening. And then let's say that the virus gets all the way down into the intestines and your body is trying to use diarrhea to get rid of it. We take an Imodium and try to go back to work. Hopefully that's not happening now because you can stay home. And I think in the future, we're learning from this shelter in place that maybe when we are sick, we can stay home and not flush everything out of the body. Not stop your body from flushing everything out, which is what it should do. Because if we keep suppressing the immune system at work, doing what it knows it needs to do to kill this virus, we could end up with full-blown allergies. And then instead of letting our body wave the flag, at that point it's going, help, help, you're fighting me and I can't tolerate this part of the environment, then we take allergy shots and Claritin and Allegra and all of these things to try to stop our immune system. And I know because I did this too when I had all of this flaring up in college, but there are other ways to work with your immune system to help it. So the question becomes, do you support or do you compromise your immune system? Because that's what makes our risk different. We see that many of the people that are having bad outcomes have other comorbidities, meaning other factors or other disease or other medications that they're on that suppress the immune system and make them immune compromised. I'll talk about that in the next slide. Okay, so what are the other things that compromise your immune system? Remember, anything that suppresses your immune system that we talked about, or antibiotics. We really want to be careful taking antibiotics for a virus, first of all, because they're not antiviral. They're antibacterial and they will kill a lot of your good bacteria, but your good bacteria is part of your immune system. So it's a little bit like if I were to have an invader in Redwood City where I live and I just bomb the whole city, including the police force and the fire trucks and everybody that was coming to help. So we can work with the bacteria in our gut to help it fight these infections. Chronic stress is a huge one. Stress degrades your immune system. It burns through vitamin C so rapidly. So we think like we're sick, we should take vitamin C, but why? We should all have storage of vitamin C because it's prevalent in fresh fruit and vegetables. But when we're super stressed out, we burn through that vitamin C so that by the time we're exposed to the bug, our immune system is like completely wiped out and it can invade the immune system a little bit easier. We don't have that fight. A lot of times we're just passing out at that point. And that's when you go on vacation and you get sick, right? It's right when that is. You're trying to take a bunch of vitamin C, but it's a little bit too late. So we'll talk about how to make sure that you're getting that all earlier. Lack of sleep, we'll talk really deeply about how important sleep is, and interestingly enough, how it's one of the factors that shows why young people are at less risk than our elders. And it has to do with melatonin. We'll talk about chronic inflammation. Inflammation is really obvious when you sprain your ankle and you see it swell and you know you shouldn't walk on it. And you know that it's going to eventually get better. But inflammation inside of our body, in our gut, in our organs, is much different. And a lot of times we don't totally see it. We have maybe upset stomach, maybe a little bit of reflux or heartburn. We have maybe a little bit of itis, some type of itis, inflammation in the gut. But we don't stop what we're doing because it's not enough to lay us out like a sprained ankle. So sometimes we just keep adding to that inflammation. And the inflammation is an immune response. So you remember there were allergies and inflammation and immunity or tolerance, the immune responses, they're all tied together. So if you're affecting one area in inflammation, you're compromising the entire immune system. C-section births and formula. Now let's not look back and worry about what has happened in the past, but look to the future of working towards a vaginal birth that helps inoculate the baby with that first passageway through the canal and actually passing by the rectum, which is really important to expose them to the environment and some of their mom's bacteria so they can borrow that immune system, because a baby does not have it has a naive immune system that's still learning and growing, and it's not a complete immune system in their first year of life, which is why breastfed babies, it is so helpful for their immune system because they borrow the antibodies from mom. So that's not always possible, and there are many other things that you can do, and there are also breast milk banks and sometimes even friends that can offer breast milk, that at least the baby would be getting those antibodies that we just can't add in the formula. Some of these you might not have control over, but what we do have control over is our diet and lifestyle. You know me, I'm with Food Foundation, and I think that is the most important thing. Food is the foundation of your health. So we will talk a lot about that in the end. And we know for a fact that sugar degrades the immune system. So much so that in 20 minutes, studies have shown that the white blood cells that would race out to fight the infection are completely lowered within 20 minutes of eating sugar. It binds to your minerals. Minerals are things like calcium and magnesium and zinc that we know we need for the immune system. But sugar binds to those minerals, chelates them or pulls them out of your body, and those minerals are essential to build your immune system. We know that sugar leads to obesity and diabetes, a lot of salt, not your good, healthy sea salt, but table salt that's in the processed foods can raise blood pressure and cardiovascular risk. All of these things add risk when you're exposed to a virus, and especially this COVID-19. So we want to make sure that you're keeping your diet healthy. All right, so why are younger people at less risk than our elders? Couple things. One, the sleep and the melatonin. Melatonin has a protective effect on the body when it's exposed to viruses, and our babies sleep all the time. They produce really good levels of melatonin. But as we get older, we don't produce as much melatonin, and our elders are not sleeping as much. So there's just less protection there against things like viruses. And the way it works is, I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, but you could always listen to it again later. We have found that SARS-CoV-2 can bind to what's called an ACE2 receptor. So think of the cells in your body. We all know we have cells. The whole body's made of them. And the receptors are like the cell towers, and they're waiting to get substances in the body. Some of them are waiting for insulin so that they can pull sugar into the cell. Some of them are waiting for thyroid hormone so that they can work on metabolism, and or estrogen and testosterone. They're waiting for all of these signals. So the ACE2 works with, it's an angiotensin converting enzyme, but when you see it in the literature, if you hear it on the news or anywhere, it looks like ACE, like an ace of spades 2. They're on many different cells, which is why we're seeing so many different ranges of symptoms, and why we can't say this particular virus only affects your lungs and your heart. Well, we have these receptors on our lungs. So people who have compromised receptors in their lungs are going to have a harder time, as we've seen with asthma and pulmonary disease. We have them on our heart. So people with heart disease or on blood pressure medication. We've seen them on the brain, which is why now we're seeing headaches. They're on the skin, so now we're seeing those rashes or COVID toe, different expressions there. We have them in the kidneys, so you can see kidney disease, and in the small intestine, so now we're seeing a lot of GI-related symptoms. So these receptors are binding this SARS-CoV-2 and bringing it into the cell and causing a whole world of problems depending on how compromised your system is. But what we found, which is exciting, because this we can do something about, is that there are floating receptors that are not bound to your cell in the serum or in the blood. And these can act as little decoys that the SARS-CoV-2 can bind to and deal with it in a way that it's not getting into our lungs where it can use them as a copy machine and replicate, getting into our heart, getting into our kidneys. So when we're young, we have very good ACE2 receptor serum activity. And when we're older, that starts to fade, just like your shocks on your car, everything sort of starts to diminish. But there are things we can do to upregulate this and actually help our immune system fight this virus. These things are exercise. We know exercise is good, but sometimes we don't know why, and sometimes I think it helps to know exactly why. And exercise upregulates those floating receptors. It helps it would help bind that virus and help improve your immune system. Melatonin, we already mentioned. Vitamin D, there was a lot of talk in the beginning about vitamin D being dangerous to take, and I was skeptical too. I even was hesitant to have my own mom start a new vitamin D because we were unsure what was happening when we took it supplementally. But there has been really good research since then of COVID-19 patients with their vitamin D levels, and they showed it has such a strong protective ability that we want to make sure that our vitamin D levels are up to par. And that's going to be where your doctor says that they're right for you. But I can tell you that the safest way to get it is in the sunshine, and we know right now that we should be outside and getting fresh air. So do make sure that your vitamin D levels are up to par. And vitamin A, that's another one that can upregulate this the ACE2 receptor. So we want to make sure that we're keeping those things at good levels. And vitamin A is another one that you don't always want to take supplementally. I do give it as a practitioner, but you need to make sure that you're not overdoing it. And some vitamins are like a teeter-totter. They will offset other levels. So you want to make sure you're getting adequate levels, and the best way to get that is in food. So we'll talk about that later. All right, so we know now how to upregulate this immune system. So when is it safe to go out there and get exposed? Well, it's never safe. It's never safer than it was before. I mean, viruses are a part of our ecosystem, and we are naive to think that we can kill it or that we can come up with a vaccine that's going to take care of it, because like I said, this virus mutates from year to year. That's what viruses do. They are little DNA or RNA. They come into your body and they use little bits, and then they mutate or change, and then they head off and change into the next host. And they need a host or a person to do this. So if we all stay inside and wait for a vaccine in 2021, which realistically is probably the earliest they would come out with one, well, then if we get a vaccine for what we're working with now, the COVID-19, the COVID 2021 might have a different antibody. Remember, they're as unique as scrambled eggs and hard-boiled eggs. They're so different. And this virus can completely mutate, which is the same as like the flu. It keeps changing from year to year, which is why the flu shot that was from the old flu is not really that effective anymore. So our best bet is to do what we can to not get sick right now with the COVID-19 when it's so virulent, it's so contagious, until it mutates. And the epidemiologists and the microbiologists have said that it is starting to change already, so that is good. And we are doing our best to flatten the curve and help that happen, not because we're afraid to go out, but because I don't want to make that risk higher for somebody who is immune compromised. So the 4 things we can do are: 1, we can prevent it from entering our body. And we're doing that right now with our social distancing and our masks and our 6 feet of distance. Then we can help stop it from using our body like a copy machine. So we can stop that viral replication. And we can do that by upregulating that ACE2 receptor. So all of those things I mentioned, and I'm going to mention them again at the end, really important to upregulate your body's immune response to stop it from replicating. Then we can optimize our response. So this is the important thing. Remember, I was saying that your fever, the height of the fever doesn't mean that's how bad your infection was. That's how your body needed to respond. And some bodies are a little bit compromised, or they're having a little trouble and they have to raise the fever really high. And it's not the infection that makes you feel bad. Like you see a kid sick and sometimes they're running around and they're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then coughing and you think, oh my goodness, that does not sound fine. But it's your immune response that makes you feel bad. So we can help work with our body's immune response to shorten that length of time so that you're not put out for the full 14 days that they say now is the average for COVID-19. Because bottom line is we will probably be exposed. And we want to make sure, the fourth thing, that you have enough nourishment that you can make it 14 days if that is the length of your sickness. And that's like when moms want to fatten up their babies so that they think if they're going through that vomiting spell that they're not going to lose so much nutrition that they're not thriving. And that we know how to do. So we can absolutely get that going. All right. We need to build a resilient immune system. It's what we need to do because eventually you are going to have to head back out there. We cannot shelter in place and socially isolate ourselves forever. It's eventually we're going to have to balance the risk and the benefit, which is what they're doing in a lot of the statistics, in trying to flatten the curve and make sure that our hospitals aren't totally overwhelmed, that we have enough ventilators if you do need to go in and get oxygen. But we have to take these precautionary measures because it's a little bit like driving a car. Actually, driving a car is way more riskier. Your life is way more at risk when you step foot in a car, but we do it every day because we have to get somewhere. Maybe right now we're wondering if we really need to get anywhere, but eventually you do. You need to get to the store. You need to get to your family's house. So we don't just jump in the car and throw our life in danger. We use seat belts and airbags and car seats, and we take preventative measures. So if we do that in our body, we can create a resilient immune system. And our ultimate goal is to tolerate the environment. So again, here's another picture of sitting outdoors, and hopefully you're not thinking, I would have hay fever and be sneezing all over the place. It's exposure that helps teach our immune system. Now, I'm not saying right now, go out to the grocery store and take off your mask and try to get exposed to everybody. You can start small in your yard or by your open window or having a pet. Thank goodness I've seen so many people with their pictures of their pets and they're walking their pets and they pets roll in the dirt, and then you pet that pet and you start to almost ingest your yard. And we know this works because Dr. Daphne Miller wrote this amazing book called Pharmacology. And there's a lot of people that have spoken to this. It's pharmacology like F, like the farm. And what her main point is that kids that grow up on farms have way less allergies. They don't have hay fever and are sneezing all over the place. And what she does is send her patients to the farm to have little bits of exposure instead of starting on allergy medication, which just suppresses the immune system. And you can't totally suppress your immune system. We'll talk about what happens later. We need these constant exposures because they work like hormesis. Hormesis is a fancy word that you don't need to remember, but remember the concept. It's a fancy word for challenge. So what do these things have in common? Sauna, exercise, echinacea, garlic, sunshine, intermittent fasting. They're all things that challenge your system and make it work a little better. So think of like exercise and you're lifting weights and and it causes a little bit of a tear in the muscle. But then the healing process of that scar tissue builds the muscle stronger and you can lift more weight. Think of a sauna. You raise your temperature so high, you start sweating out all of these toxins. It's very detoxifying. That's so important because we don't sweat anymore. We sit in a 70-degree environment all day and our body doesn't have to regulate like a thermostat much anymore. And that would be the thyroid's main job. But because it doesn't have to do that, how many people are becoming hypothyroid, or their thyroid's not quite as active? So echinacea and garlic, same things. We think, I need to take echinacea for my immune system, but you might not really know what it does if somebody were to ask you, oh, why do you do that? What does that do? It works in hormesis. It challenges your gut bacteria a little bit, and it helps them grow stronger. Intermittent fasting is the same thing, and we are eating all day long, especially right now. The kitchen is right there when you're home all day, and we're just snacking, feasting, and that's not the way our bodies are built to work. The way that they're built to work is to fast and to actually build hunger, which raises the stomach acid, that growling that you hear before you eat. And that stomach acid burns through germs and microbiomes and things that get that gets into our body. Really important for your immune system. So try spacing out your eating a little bit more, and at least going 12 hours before you break your fast in the morning. And here's my 5 tips on how to help improve this. These are the things that you can do right now, and we'll go into each of these more in detail, but you can sleep more. I know that's not as easy as it sounds. You can mind your stress. We're going to talk about how important that is. Avoid immune compromising and instead support your immune responses. And then finally, we'll finish with your nutrient-dense foods, my favorite. All right, sleep. Your immune system uses all of your energy. Now, I know some of you, some of my audience are really intelligent and know that, oh my goodness, a baby shouldn't be sleeping with their mouth open. And this is my baby after 2 flights to Iceland. So imagine his immune system after the airplanes and the airports and we finally get there and he's exhausted, so exhausted he can't even close his mouth. Now, this baby's immune system is fine. He's actually 10 now and has never had a single antibiotic. He's doing okay. But the immune system, when it's working, needs to not be doing anything else. An adult needs 8 hours of sleep for this to happen, and a baby or a child needs anywhere from 10 to 12. I know you might not think you need that much, and your brain might not, but your body does, to repair and to regenerate health. It's really important. Remember, the melatonin is so protective of your immune system. You don't necessarily have to take melatonin, and although I do recommend it to some people, you can build it by being in the sunshine during the day. Make sure you get plenty of sunlight, and then at night you're in the darkness, so your pineal gland in your brain feels the circadian rhythm and releases melatonin at night. If you wake up in the middle of the night because your blood sugar is dysregulated, or maybe you have a little bit of anxiety because we're all under a lot of stress right now, don't get up. Try to keep your eyes closed. Try to limit the stimulation. Don't get on your phone or the computer in that blue light. Try to keep it as rest and get more sunlight the next day. Because even that meditation at night and that relaxation really counts, because the second factor is stress. Remember, I said that stress burns through your vitamin C, but not only that, your minerals and your B vitamins and things that are so important for immune systems. So my recommendation is to stop watching the news. The media has used fear tactics to make us way more afraid than we need to be. And I hope after hearing this, you're not feeling as afraid. Most people that are exposed to this virus are doing just fine. And those that are not typically have comorbidities and other factors that they're working on that are causing fatalities. So we need to really mind that stress, and instead of sharing fear and spreading this contagiously through social media, think about sharing hope and compassion. And I'm trying to do that through my new YouTube channel because it's a place where I can give you this information. And I've started a yoga videos because I am a certified yoga teacher. And I actually hated yoga when I started it. It was like slow down and meditate. And I'm type A. I don't slow down. I don't sit down. But it was exactly what I needed to bring the body back into that deep, breathing, gentle place. Now, if yoga's not your jam, do something else. Laughing can help bring you into that place. So even if we're all watching way too much TV, but even if it's watching a silly show with your family and laughing, any type of meditative activity that brings mindfulness. It can be a gratitude journal where you're just writing down what you feel grateful for. It can be lying in your room in the darkness, listening to music and just breathing. But we need to get out of the fight or flight response that the news brings us and that raises the anxiety, because it's so important to get your body into the rest and digest phase that is the parasympathetic zone. And that is where our immune system thrives, heals, and regenerates health. So if you are feeling sick, or you feeling like, ooh, I was taking all that Tylenol and now she said not to take Tylenol, take an Epsom salt bath, which will replenish the minerals that you were using up for your liver to get rid of that Tylenol, and it will help you flush your body. It will fill you full of magnesium, relax the muscles, and help you mind your stress. These are some of the immune compromising things. I mentioned the prescriptions because a study I was reading out of Georgetown University showed that the average individual over 65 years old will fill 20 prescriptions a year. That is so much more than our children, and another reason why we see greater risk with the comorbidities, the other things that we're facing. So I am not a doctor, remember. I cannot tell you to stop your medication and your prescription. That is a conversation you need to have with your practitioner. But also, you don't need to run out and grab an over-the-counter medication that's going to just suppress your symptoms when there are ways to work supportive with it. We talked about the sugar. Sugar is very detrimental to the immune system, and it upregulates your stress. You might not feel stressed. You might actually feel great when you have ice cream, but it's terrible later. And then the bottom picture, yes, he's smoking, and I know most of my audience is not, but I think he looks stressed out. And remember that stress is a huge immune compromiser, and we want to make sure that we're getting our body nice and comfortable where we can keep breathing. As soon as our stress raises, I see this all the time in the doctor's office, our blood pressure raises. So one of the most important things you can do is deep breathing that helps bring your blood pressure back down to a safe level. So instead, this is where you need to grab a pen. I'm going to go through all of these immune supporting compounds. So pretend you're sitting in my yard. This is my yard right now. Everything's growing like crazy. And even the weeds, instead of killing them, right, spot treating with the medication, I'm letting them synergistically grow and focusing more on the flowers and immune supporting. I'm treating the yard like I would my body and letting it grow a beautiful bacteria or a microbiome, a garden biome. So let's say you're sitting in the yard and you start sneezing. What is your body saying? Something's getting in and I don't know what it is. I think it's an invader. Instead of taking an antihistamine, you could try drinking nettle tea, because stinging nettle would be in that yard and it's a natural antihistamine. Or maybe use a neti pot to flush out the sinuses and help your body cleanse it out. You could take a hot shower and just wash it out if you don't have a neti pot. So now say all of a sudden you start coughing. You could be dehydrated. Speaking of, I'm talking like crazy. But you could also try a licorice root tea that would help coat the throat and make it feel more less raspy. Think of a throat coat tea, which would also use slippery elm and marshmallow. And if you're coughing, you could use lobelia or cherry bark, plants that would be growing in the garden as if you're getting the environment into your body, and they work synergistically to help you tolerate this environment. They work with your immune system and build it stronger. Maybe then it's getting into stomach pain. You could try mint tea, which is why you see mints after a meal at a restaurant. Unfortunately, they're full of sugar, and now it's just a sugar addiction. But originally, it's because the mint, called yerba buena, the good herb in Spanish, is one of those things that settles the stomach. Let's say you're feeling a little nauseous, you could try a spicy ginger tea, which helps way more than taking a diclegis or a medication for nausea, because nausea is often when the liver feels a little congested and it's supposed to be detoxing all these toxins. So why would you put a medication that's filled with a bunch of other toxins? We want to try a ginger tea first. Maybe you have diarrhea. Now, again, we talked about when it gets down into the intestines and your body's trying to get rid of that bug. Try carob powder. Carob is what a Tootsie Roll is made out of, and it will synergistically work to add bulk, and slow the motility of the contents rushing right through you. You could make like a little carob hot chocolate. It's delicious. It's one of the easiest things to give the kids. And then maybe you're feeling that scratch that you got in inflammation. And you want to make sure that you have enough omega-3s, which we'll talk about in the food, but you can get that from a fish oil, fatty fish, or curcumin, which would be grown in the yellow turmeric that might be in a garden. And that turmeric, remember, upregulates those ACE2 receptors that are floating around in your body, so that's a better boost for your immune system, not to mention the vitamin D that you'd be getting from sitting in the garden. So let's talk about my favorite, the nutrient-dense food. This is so important, and why you want to focus on foods that have nutrients in them, because nutrients are your vitamins and your minerals and the key ingredients that help your immune system. We want a lot of color. Color has all of the different antioxidants. And I know you hear that word and we don't quite know what it does, but think about when your car rusts, when iron oxidizes. It's not a good thing, right? The same sort of thing happens in your body when it oxidizes. We want to make sure that we're not rusting as we age. And so those antioxidants kind of act like little buffers coming out and buffing out the rust. So make sure you're getting as much color as possible. We want to make sure that we're getting seasonal. Right now, when it's flu season or throughout the winter, citrus is growing like crazy and it's filled with vitamin C. It's like Mother Nature knew this was happening or had great intentions to make sure that we would be provided with vitamin C when we tend to catch colds. So make sure you're getting fresh citrus with that vitamin C. Your vitamin D will come in the fatty fish, the cod liver oil, caviar, that delicious fish eggs that are on your sushi, dairy, and you want a whole milk organic dairy that's clean, not full of pesticides or antibiotics that could kill the bacteria in your gut. And it's in mushrooms, all of those medicinal mushrooms that we hear about. Your vitamin A is going to come in your oranges and your reds, like the carrots and the sweet potatoes, that beta carotene that you hear about. But we also need the animal form, which comes in butter. So what a beautiful combination, having buttered carrots or buttered sweet potato. It's also in eggs and the greens. So really good time to get lots of greens right now, and they mix into everything. Smoothies, stir fries, soups. Just try to get as many of these fresh foods. You want it really fresh because the second it's picked, it starts to lose nutrients. So sometimes in the grocery store, it's been sitting forever. And the better way would be to look for a farmer's market or a CSA farm box that gets delivered right to you from the farm. Also been touched by less people, and usually it's cleaner. So maybe not organic. Sometimes there's differences in the labeling of whether they're using organic pesticides, but we really want them not sprayed with pesticides because they're really harmful for the immune system. Pesticides kill bugs and kill critters, and how do we know they're not killing the critters in our own gut that are part of our immune system? So let's look at a little bit more therapeutic foods. Okay, quercetin is one of those antioxidant compounds I was mentioning, and it's really good for the immune system. I have a lot of clients who take quercetin as a supplement. It's a fiber that is found, or a compound found in the fiber in apples, onions, and lots of our fibrous produce. So you want to make sure that you cook onions into your soups and stews, cook apples for our babies in our grains, and get as much of this quercetin as we can into our body. It will help you absorb zinc, which is one of those minerals that's really important for your immune system. But as all minerals, we can't take too much zinc, because if we keep taking zinc, our copper level, remember that teeter-totter I was saying? Our copper level will go down. And we need some copper, but we can't take a bunch of copper. So you can't OD or overdose your vitamins if you just eat them in your food. Mushrooms, very protective effect. This is something I danced with in the beginning, kind of researched a lot, thinking if clients had fungals on their body, should they really be eating fungals? And again, it's that hormesis. It gives your body a little bit of a challenge and teaches it how to overcome these fungals in your immune system. So these are these amazing mushrooms that were hand foraged here by the ocean to table, and shiitake and lion's mane and maitake. You can find all sorts of ranges of mushrooms in your store. Crucifers, that's the broccoli. These are full of sulfur, which helps your liver detox all of the bad components. So when you get a bug or a virus, which we sort of pick these up all the time, our body kills it, fights it, and then it has to get rid of the waste. So lots and lots of sulfur-rich crucifers of the cabbage, watercress, bok choy, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, really good to help your immune system. And elderberry, not in the picture. Elderberry is one of those compounds where everybody ran out and bought it immediately because it is the best researched viral replication inhibitor. So it's going to stop that copy machine effect. Do we know for sure if it works on SARS-CoV-2? No, because we haven't done enough research on it. It's brand new, but it works on all the other coronaviruses, all the influenza viruses, like most viruses. So chances are pretty high with this particular virus having 80 to 85% similarity, depending on who you're reading by. It has a pretty good chance of blocking it from making copies. So elderberries can be grown in a lot of climates, and a lot of people are making their own tinctures and syrups for coughs out of them. So that's a wonderful compound. And zinc can most likely stop the replication too. So again, looking for seafood, this salmon not only has omega-3s, which lower your inflammation, but all the seafood is full of zinc and the minerals that would be in ocean water, like that salt or sea salt even, to make sure that you're getting plenty of minerals for your immune system. So I hope that helps. Once I found a lot of this information, it really helped me feel empowered. And I think you can just trust your instincts, like that mama bear, you're trying to help your family, And it's the things we know. We know we need exercise. We know we need sunshine. We know we need sleep. We know we need healthy food, but it's most important now as we're getting ready to head back out there and be exposed. And that's our tool. This is this amazing artist, Janice, in Santa Cruz, who was drawing this on the sidewalk, and I couldn't help it. I thought it was so funny. And I just thought, that's our tool. Our weapon is our immune system. It's innate. We all have it, and it can really work for you if you support it. So I'm going to open this up to Q&A. And if you don't have any questions right now, but you think of them later, this will be recorded, this will be posted, and you can go ahead and type them into the chat below, and I'll keep checking throughout the weeks and make sure that I answer for you. Thank you, guys. And I'm looking around because there's so many different screens with this new technology. So, all right, we have a good question from John. What about supplements? And now I'm going to talk in a general sense, remember, because I can't tell people specifically doses. When I meet with them personally, I do. I give exact dosage. But nattokinase is actually a really good supplement, and it is one I use because natto is not everybody's favorite. I like to eat it, but it tastes like soybean feet. They're the little fermented soybeans. So I might not have mentioned probiotic foods, and thank you, John, for reminding me, but probiotic foods are so good for your immune system. And natto not only is a fermented food, but it has vitamin K, and in particular vitamin K2. So when I was talking about that teeter-totter effect of having vitamin D, and having too much vitamin D as a supplement will lower your vitamin K2. And K2 is what actually helps us absorb calcium into our bones. It's not taking calcium. So if you've broken a bone and you're thinking you need to take calcium forever, you might want to talk about vitamin K2 with your practitioner, because it's what helps you get your calcium into your bones. Lysine is a super good supplement for viruses. We know it works with Epstein-Barr virus, which is like shingles, chickenpox, the herpes simplexes. It can help, but again, sort of like the vitamin C, we run low of vitamin C. When we're super stressed out, we tend to run low of lysine. When we're super stressed out, we tend to see those infections come out. And that lysine is balanced with methionine in beans and grains, and we tend to get out of balance. So it's perfectly safe. And I do have protocols on my blog, and if you reached out to me privately afterwards, I could give doses on that. NAC is something that I'm taking, and I could help privately with doses of that. But NAC is N-acetylcysteine. It's an amino acid, and it helps your body make glutathione. And when I talked about the Tylenol earlier, when you take Tylenol or acetaminophen, your liver has to get that toxin, because literally it is a toxin, out of the body. And it uses glutathione. So the levels drop really low. And that's where I was saying, make sure you take an Epsom salt bath later. But taking NAC, if you're doing anything to kill a virus, NAC will help flush that out of your liver by raising your glutathione. It can do a whole bunch of other things, but that's like the simple answer for now. Quercetin we talked about. You can take that if you have serious allergies. A lot of practitioners will use that. And bromelain is an enzyme in pineapple. So I'm always food first. You could get your quercetin and your bromelain and your lysine from food. Of course, if you have an outbreak, you might want to take those supplementally, but bromelain in pineapple. And you can get pineapple enzymes, and they will help you break down your food. So I hope that helped. A bunch of thank yous. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you being here. And if we don't have any other questions, then we can keep this short and sweet. You can head out to your day. I hope there was something new. And again, if you find a question later, go ahead and type it down below, and I would be happy to answer it. remember, food is the foundation of your health, so don't be afraid to get the produce. It is super important. You can wash it, you can cook it, and take this time, if you have any extra time, to nourish your body, get some extra sleep, get some extra love with your family or whoever you have close to you, and take care.